It began as a private disagreement behind palace doors, one that staff dismissed as routine, and aides refused to discuss. But when Queen Camilla abruptly cancelled several appearances, and Princess Catherine remained noticeably silent, whispers spread through royal circles. Something had happened. What began as a clash of personalities was now threatening the very image of the monarchy itself. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the signs were subtle enough to escape public attention. A cancelled appearance here, an unusually brief statement there, nothing dramatic on its own. Yet inside royal circles, people were beginning to notice a pattern that was becoming harder to ignore. Reports suggest that tensions between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine had been quietly growing behind the scenes for months. While the palace continued presenting a united front, insiders whispered that the atmosphere inside certain royal meetings had become noticeably strained. What had once been described as minor disagreements over priorities and scheduling was now being viewed through a very different lens. According to individuals familiar with recent royal engagements, staff members found themselves navigating an increasingly uncomfortable situation. Several events that should have been routine allegedly became sources of friction, forcing aides to work overtime to prevent awkward moments from spilling into public view. Those closest to palace operations reportedly noticed subtle changes in behavior. Conversations became shorter, coordination became more complicated. Long-standing routines suddenly required careful management. Nobody was openly speaking about a feud, but many appeared to be acting as though one existed. The concern deepened as senior aides were reportedly drawn into multiple attempts to ease tensions. Palace officials are said to have worked tirelessly to keep disagreements private, fearing that even the smallest leak could trigger a media storm. Yet the more effort that was spent containing rumors, the more questions began circulating. Why was so much attention being devoted to what was supposedly a routine matter? Why were communications teams becoming increasingly defensive whenever questions emerged regarding the relationship between Catherine and Camilla? Soon, trusted royal correspondents began hearing fragments of the same story from different sources. The details varied, but the underlying message remained remarkably consistent. Something significant had changed within the royal family's inner circle. Reporters who had spent years covering the monarchy sensed that there was more beneath the surface than official statements were willing to reveal. Some insiders claimed the conflict had been building quietly for months, hidden beneath public smiles and carefully managed appearances. Others suggested that recent developments had merely brought long-standing tensions into sharper focus. As speculation intensified, the palace found itself confronting a familiar but dangerous problem. Silence was no longer calming the situation. Instead, it was feeding it. Every cancelled engagement, every carefully worded statement, and every unanswered question seemed to add another layer of mystery to an already troubling situation. What had started as private tension was gradually becoming a matter of public fascination, and unknown to many watching from the outside, an even greater crisis was already beginning to unfold behind closed doors. But the feud itself was only the beginning. The real crisis erupted when private details suddenly found their way into public view. The monarchy can survive criticism. It can survive scandal. But what it fears most is exposure from within. And when reports describing a bitter feud between Camilla and Catherine surfaced, the palace realized it was facing something far more dangerous than gossip. What had been contained behind private conversations and carefully guarded doors was suddenly spilling into the public domain. At first, the reports appeared in scattered fragments. A comment from one publication, a carefully worded reference from another. Then came a wave of stories that seemed impossible to ignore. Major publications began discussing the growing strain between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine, transforming what had once been whispered among insiders into a subject of international attention. The palace had spent months trying to prevent exactly this outcome. Now, it was happening in full view of the world. The most troubling part was not simply that stories were appearing. It was how specific some of those stories seemed to be. Royal correspondents who normally relied on broad speculation suddenly appeared to possess details that suggested information was coming from somewhere unusually close to the center of note. events. That realization sent shockwaves through palace offices. According to reports, officials immediately began asking difficult questions. Who had spoken? How much information had been shared? And perhaps most importantly, could the source still be inside the royal operation itself? As those questions circulated behind closed doors, public fascination exploded. Across newspapers, television programs, and social media platforms, millions of people found themselves discussing the same mystery. Everyone wanted to know what had truly happened between Camilla and Catherine. Every new article generated fresh theories. Every rumor created another headline. The story no longer belonged to the palace. It belonged to the public. And once that happened, controlling the narrative became almost impossible. The leak also exposed a deeper fear lurking beneath the surface. For generations, the monarchy had depended upon loyalty. Not merely loyalty to individuals, but loyalty to the institution itself. Yet the appearance of these reports forced many to confront an uncomfortable possibility. If private disagreements were finding their way into newspapers, what did that say about trust within the royal households? Some observers began wondering whether rival factions had emerged behind the scenes. Others questioned whether personal loyalties were beginning to outweigh institutional duties. Suddenly, the conversation was no longer focused solely on Camilla and Catherine. It was becoming a debate about the stability of the monarchy itself. At the center of the growing storm stood King Charles. Reports suggest that the king became increasingly troubled as the situation escalated. What had begun as a private disagreement was now threatening to overshadow the work of the entire royal family. Advisors reportedly warned that every new headline was causing additional damage. The longer the story remained alive, the harder it would become to restore public confidence. Charles had spent years preparing for the responsibilities of the crown. Yet now he found himself confronting a crisis that no carefully planned strategy could easily resolve. The pressure intensified with each passing day. Palace officials searched for answers. Journalists searched for more sources. The public searched for the truth. Meanwhile, the leak continued transforming a personal conflict into a national conversation. The divide between private tensions and public consequences had completely disappeared, and as the controversy expanded beyond anyone's control, it became increasingly clear that the monarchy was approaching a decisive moment. The damage was no longer theoretical. It was real. And before long, the spotlight would focus on the one figure who could no longer remain in the background. As headlines spread across the world, attention quickly turned toward the one man caught between the two women. For years, King Charles had worked carefully to maintain balance within the royal family. But now that balance was collapsing. As the controversy grew louder, Charles found himself forced to choose between protecting his queen and protecting the institution he had spent his life preparing to lead. The growing storm surrounding the leaked feud had created a situation unlike anything Charles had hoped to face during his reign. What had begun as whispers inside royal corridors had become a full-scale crisis that was now unfolding in public. Every new article seemed to deepen the divide. Every fresh headline raised new questions. And with each passing day, the pressure on the king intensified. Reports suggest that Charles spent considerable time attempting to calm tensions behind closed doors, hoping that careful conversations and private diplomacy could achieve what public statements could not. Yet the deeper he reached for a solution, the more complicated the situation appeared to become. For Charles, the challenge was not simply personal, it was institutional. Throughout his life, he had understood that the monarchy survives because it projects stability, continuity, and trust. The crown could withstand criticism from outside voices. It could weather controversy. But internal conflict was different. Internal conflict suggested weakness. It suggested division. And division, especially when made public, threatened the very foundation upon which royal authority depended. That reality weighed heavily, as advisors reportedly began presenting increasingly serious assessments of the damage being caused by the ongoing controversy. Senior palace figures are said to have warned that the issue was no longer confined to questions about relationships between individual members of the family. Public confidence was becoming part of the conversation. Every discussion about the alleged feud seemed to pull attention away from the monarchy's broader responsibilities. The institution risked becoming defined by conflict rather than service. Those warnings reportedly struck a nerve. Charles had spent decades preparing for the responsibilities of kingship, and now he was confronting the possibility that one of the defining stories of his reign could become a deeply personal family dispute. While the controversy continued to grow, Catherine reportedly maintained a disciplined focus on her official responsibilities. Observers noted that she avoided becoming publicly drawn into the speculation. That restraint only increased public interest. Many began interpreting her silence as a sign of strength. Others viewed it as evidence that the situation behind the scenes was even more serious than people realized. The less she said, the more people talked. And in a crisis, fueled by uncertainty, every unanswered question became another source of fascination. At the same time, reports suggested that Camilla was experiencing an increasingly difficult period. Once viewed as a central figure in Charles's reign, she now found herself at the center of growing scrutiny. Supporters reportedly worried that she was becoming isolated as public attention intensified. The constant speculation created an atmosphere where every decision, every appearance, and every absence was analyzed for hidden meaning. What had once seemed like manageable controversy was now beginning to feel like something much larger and far more dangerous. Caught between competing pressures, Charles faced challenges from every direction. Advisors urged caution, supporters demanded clarity, critics questioned leadership, loyalists worried about the monarchy's reputation. Meanwhile, the public appetite for answers showed no sign of fading. The king found himself standing at the center of a widening storm, trying to preserve unity, while the forces pulling that unity apart continued growing stronger. Yet even as he searched for a path forward, events were already moving beyond his control. Powerful individuals inside the palace had begun reaching their own conclusions about what needed to happen next, and those conclusions would soon reshape the future of the crisis in ways few could yet imagine. Yet while Charles searched for a solution, powerful figures within the palace were already reaching their own conclusions. Royal history has always been shaped by quiet decisions made behind closed doors, and according to insiders, a growing number of senior officials had begun to view the feud not as a personal dispute, but as a threat to the future stability of the crown. As the controversy continued spreading beyond palace walls, a noticeable shift reportedly began taking place among the monarchy's most experienced figures. What had initially been treated as an unfortunate disagreement between two senior royals was increasingly being discussed in far more serious terms. Behind the scenes, senior palace officials were said to be examining the broader consequences of the crisis, asking questions that went beyond personalities and private grievances. Their concern was no longer centered solely on who was right or wrong. Instead, they were focused on what the ongoing conflict was doing to the institution itself. The monarchy had survived wars, scandals, and constitutional challenges, but history had repeatedly shown that prolonged internal division could leave scars that lasted for generations. Reports suggest that conversations among advisors became increasingly urgent as public scrutiny intensified. Every fresh headline seemed to create another layer of uncertainty. Every leaked detail appeared to strengthen the perception that the royal family was struggling with divisions it could no longer fully contain. Some insiders reportedly warned that the longer the controversy continued, the greater the risk that public trust could begin to erode. The crown depended upon an image of stability and discipline. If that image weakened, the consequences could extend far beyond a single dispute. At the same time, attention increasingly turned toward Prince William. Those close to royal affairs claimed that he had become deeply concerned about the impact the situation was having on Catherine. For years, she had carefully built a reputation centered on duty, consistency, and service. Now, despite her efforts to remain above the growing controversy, she found herself pulled into a storm she had never publicly invited. Reports suggested that William became increasingly protective, determined to shield both his wife and the future of the institution they were expected to lead one day. The pressure surrounding the Princess of Wales was growing, and so too was the determination of Those who believed her role within the monarchy had become more important than ever. Meanwhile, concerns regarding public perception continued to dominate discussions behind closed doors. Advisors reportedly studied every reaction, every headline, and every shift in public sentiment. The fear was not merely that people were talking about the feud. The fear was that the feud itself was beginning to define the conversation surrounding the royal family. Instead of focusing on charitable work, national service, or long-term priorities, attention remained locked on personal tensions. For a monarchy built upon symbolism and public confidence, that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. To reports, internal reviews of royal engagements also began taking shape. Officials were said to be examining future appearances, responsibilities, and public messaging strategies with greater intensity than before. Every decision now carried additional weight. Every appearance had the potential to either calm concerns or fuel new speculation. Advisors reportedly stressed the importance of discipline, unity, and consistency. They understood that mixed messages could deepen the crisis. The institution needed clarity. It needed purpose. Above all, it needed a strategy capable of restoring confidence before the situation drifted even further out of control. As these discussions continued, momentum quietly began building towards something larger. What started as analysis gradually evolved into preparation. What began as concern slowly transformed into determination. More and more influential voices appeared to be reaching the same conclusion. A decisive action might soon become unavoidable. The atmosphere inside royal circles reportedly grew heavier with anticipation, as though many already sensed that a major moment was approaching. They simply did not know exactly when it would arrive, or what form it would take when it finally did. Then came the meeting that many insiders would later describe as a turning point. No cameras were present. No official photographs were released. Yet the meeting would become one of the most discussed private gatherings of Charles's reign. By the time it ended, the future of Camilla's public role appeared dramatically different. The anticipation that had been building for weeks finally led to a moment many inside royal circles reportedly knew was coming. Behind closed doors, away from public scrutiny, and far from the relentless cycle of headlines, King Charles gathered some of the most trusted figures around him. The atmosphere surrounding the consultations was said to be unusually serious. This was no longer a discussion about containing rumors or calming tensions. The crisis had evolved beyond that stage. What began as a private feud had become a question about the monarchy's future direction, and Charles now faced decisions that could shape both his reign and the institution's reputation for years to come. Reports suggest that the king listened carefully as advisors presented their assessments of the situation. Different viewpoints emerged, but a common theme reportedly connected nearly all of them. The damage caused by the controversy was continuing to grow. Every new article reignited debate. Every fresh leak created another wave of speculation. The longer uncertainty remained, the more difficult it would become to restore stability. For an institution built on continuity and public confidence, the risks were becoming impossible to dismiss. According to insiders, discussions grew increasingly intense as attention turned toward public responsibilities and future appearances. Some reportedly argued that maintaining the status quo would only prolong the crisis. Others believed that any significant changes could create even greater controversy. The debate reflected the difficult position Charles found himself in. On one side stood personal loyalty. On the other stood the demands of the crown. Those demands had defined his entire life, and now they were forcing him into one of the most uncomfortable positions of his reign. As the conversations continued, reputation management reportedly became the central concern. Advisors are said to have stressed that public perception was no longer shifting by the week. It was changing by the day. The monarchy's image had become tied to a story it did not control, and every attempt to remain silent seemed to generate even more questions. The institution needed clarity. It needed a path forward. Most importantly, it needed a strategy capable of demonstrating that stability remained intact despite the growing turmoil. What made the discussions particularly difficult was the emotional weight behind them. This was not merely a matter of schedules, appearances, or public relations. Personal relationships were deeply intertwined with every possible decision. Yet reports suggest that a growing number of influential voices were reaching the same conclusion. The future image of the monarchy had to come before individual considerations. The crown, they argued, could not afford to become trapped by a controversy that showed no signs of fading. Protecting the institution was beginning to outweigh protecting feelings. As that consensus gained momentum, arguments for major changes reportedly became harder to resist. What had once seemed unlikely was now being openly discussed. The possibility of dramatically altering Camilla's public role no longer belonged to the realm of speculation. It had entered the realm of serious consideration. Those developments sent ripples throughout royal circles, where many sensed that an extraordinary decision was approaching. By the end of the consultations, preparations were reportedly beginning for something unprecedented. Plans were quietly examined. Messaging strategies were considered. Contingencies were discussed. While no official announcement had yet been made, the direction of travel appeared increasingly clear. The monarchy was preparing for a moment that could redefine public perceptions of both Camilla and the institution itself. Few knew exactly how the final decision would be presented. Fewer still understood how dramatic its impact would become once it reached the public. But one thing was becoming impossible to ignore. The course of events had changed, and there was no turning back. And when the decision finally emerged, it stunned even those who thought they were prepared. The news spread quickly through royal circles. Appearances vanished from schedules. Engagements quietly disappeared. What had once seemed unthinkable was suddenly being discussed as reality. Camilla's public responsibilities were effectively being stripped away. The moment the reports began circulating, an atmosphere of shock settled over those who had spent months watching the crisis unfold. For weeks, speculation had centered on what action might be taken. Now, according to growing reports from royal observers, action had finally arrived. Engagements that once appeared firmly established on official calendars were suddenly absent. Planned appearances reportedly underwent review. Responsibilities long associated with Camilla appeared increasingly uncertain. What had once been dismissed as impossible was now being discussed as a dramatic new reality. The speed with which the news traveled only intensified the sense of disbelief. Within royal circles, conversations that had previously focused on rumors now shifted toward consequences. The discussion was no longer about whether changes might happen. It was about how extensive those changes would become. Observers who had followed the monarchy for decades struggled to recall a comparable situation. The apparent restructuring of such a prominent public role suggested that the institution was entering unfamiliar territory, guided by concerns that had grown too large to ignore. Public attention immediately centered on Camilla herself. Every development seemed to place her under an even brighter spotlight. Supporters argued that she was facing extraordinary scrutiny at a moment when emotions were already running high. Critics viewed the situation differently, suggesting that the consequences reflected the seriousness of the controversy. Regardless of where people stood, one fact became impossible to deny. Camilla had become the focal point of one of the most significant royal debates in recent memory. Throughout the growing storm, palace messaging reportedly remained tightly controlled. Statements were measured. Explanations were limited. Official communications appeared carefully crafted to avoid adding fuel to an already volatile situation. Yet the restraint itself generated additional speculation. The less information that emerged publicly, the more questions people asked. Why were schedules changing? Why were responsibilities being reassessed? And perhaps most importantly, what did these developments mean for Camilla's future within the monarchy? Those questions quickly became the subject of intense debate. Some commentators suggested that the changes represented a temporary response designed to stabilize public perceptions. Others believed they pointed toward a far more permanent transformation. Across newspapers, broadcasts, and public discussions, people searched for clues about what might happen next. Every adjustment seemed to carry deeper significance. Every silence appeared loaded with meaning. The uncertainty only amplified fascination. As reactions intensified, divisions emerged among those following the story. Loyal supporters defended Camilla and questioned whether the controversy justified such dramatic consequences. Critics argued that protecting the institution required difficult decisions. Both sides spoke passionately, reflecting just how deeply the issue had resonated with the public. Yet beneath the arguments, a larger realization was beginning to take hold. This was no longer simply a story about one individual. It was becoming a story about priorities, succession, public trust, and the direction of the monarchy itself. That realization gave the developments an even greater sense of weight. Reports suggested that influential figures increasingly viewed the changes not as isolated actions, but as part of a broader effort to reshape the institution's future image. The monarchy appeared to be making a statement about what it valued most: stability, discipline, continuity. Those principles were now being placed above personal considerations, signaling a significant shift in thinking among those tasked with protecting the crown. As the implications of the decision continued unfolding, many began to understand that the true impact extended far beyond schedules and appearances. Something larger was taking shape beneath the surface. The controversy had forced difficult choices, and those choices were now setting the stage for a future that could look very different from the past. The consequences were only beginning to reveal themselves. But the consequences extended far beyond one individual. They reached into the very future of the monarchy. As one chapter appeared to close, another began opening. The Prince and Princess of Wales suddenly found themselves occupying an even more central position within the royal family, strengthening their influence at a critical moment. The aftermath of the controversy created something few people had anticipated. While attention had been focused on conflict, uncertainty, and the consequences surrounding Camilla's public role, another transformation was quietly unfolding in parallel. As the monarchy searched for stability, public attention increasingly shifted toward Prince William and Princess Catherine. They had not sought the spotlight during the crisis. Yet as events unfolded, they found themselves becoming symbols of exactly what many people believed the institution needed most: consistency, reliability, and calm leadership during a period of growing turbulence. Reports suggest that senior palace figures began recognizing the significance of this shift almost immediately. The monarchy had spent months navigating uncertainty, but now a new narrative was beginning to emerge. Instead of focusing exclusively on division, conversations increasingly centered on the future. And when people spoke about that future, the names most frequently mentioned were William and Catherine. Their growing prominence appeared less like a sudden development and more like the natural result of years spent building public trust. In a moment defined by instability, they represented continuity. Public support for the Prince and Princess of Wales reportedly grew even stronger as the crisis continued fading into the background. Observers noted that many people viewed them as steady figures who remained focused on duty, regardless of the distractions surrounding them. While controversy dominated headlines elsewhere, William and Catherine continued to embody the qualities many associated with the next generation of royal leadership. That contrast did not go unnoticed. In fact, it appeared to strengthen their position more than any public campaign ever could. As a result, reports suggested that palace strategy increasingly began revolving around long-term planning centered on the future generation. Advisors were reportedly looking beyond immediate challenges and focusing on the years ahead. The question was no longer simply how to manage the current crisis. The question was how to strengthen confidence in what would come next. In those discussions, William and Catherine naturally occupied a central place. Their role was becoming increasingly important, not just because of succession, but because they had become key figures in the effort to reinforce public trust. Trust itself reportedly became one of the most important themes shaping internal conversations. Advisors understood that confidence is not built overnight. It develops through consistency, discipline, and reliability over time. In many ways, the crisis had reinforced that lesson. The monarchy's future would depend upon figures capable of inspiring stability, even during periods of uncertainty. William and Catherine increasingly appeared to fit that role, and many inside royal circles viewed their growing influence as a reflection of that reality. Throughout the controversy, Catherine's reputation remained largely untouched. While speculation swirled around others, she continued to be associated with service, professionalism, and restraint. That distinction proved significant. The absence of direct involvement in public disputes strengthened perceptions that she represented a different approach to royal life. One focused less on conflict and more on responsibility. The contrast became increasingly visible as the wider story evolved. Gradually, a new balance of power appeared to be taking shape within the monarchy. It was not announced through official statements or dramatic declarations. Instead, it emerged through changing perceptions, shifting priorities, and growing confidence in the future. The institution seemed to be positioning itself around figures viewed as capable of guiding it through the next chapter. Yet, even as that future appeared more defined than it had been months earlier, uncertainty still lingered over one critical question. The immediate crisis may have changed the direction of the monarchy, but it had not fully resolved every issue left behind in its wake. Yet even as the future seemed clearer, one question remained unanswered. Royal scandals eventually fade. Headlines move on, but some decisions leave permanent marks. As the dust settled around the leaked feud, many began asking whether this was merely a temporary setback or the beginning of a lasting transformation within the House of Windsor. In the weeks that followed, the intensity of the crisis gradually began to soften. The endless speculation slowed. The daily headlines became less frequent. Yet beneath that calmer surface, important questions remained unanswered. The most significant of those questions centered on Queen Camilla and what the future might hold for her role within the monarchy. While the immediate controversy appeared to be fading from public view, uncertainty continued to surround her long-term position. Some believed the changes that had already taken place were temporary measures designed to restore stability. Others suspected that something far more permanent had begun unfolding behind the scenes. The truth remained elusive, but one thing was clear. The events of recent months had altered perceptions in ways that could not easily be reversed. At the same time, attention increasingly shifted toward King Charles and the legacy he hoped to leave behind. More than any other figure, he had found himself caught between competing responsibilities. Throughout the crisis, he had faced difficult choices that tested both his personal loyalties and his commitment to the institution he had spent a lifetime preparing to lead. As discussions about the future intensified, many observers began viewing the controversy through the lens of history. How would this period be remembered? Would it become a defining challenge of his reign? Or would it be seen as a painful but necessary chapter in a larger story about protecting the monarchy's future? Those questions carried enormous weight because the institution itself appeared determined to focus on rebuilding stability. Reports suggested that senior figures increasingly emphasized unity, consistency, and long-term planning. The lesson many seemed to take from the controversy was that public confidence could never be taken for granted. Trust had to be protected. Stability had to be reinforced. Every decision moving forward would be measured against those priorities. The monarchy understood that while scandals eventually fade, public perceptions can linger far longer. For that reason, maintaining confidence became one of the crown's most important objectives. The future would depend not only on managing challenges, but also on demonstrating resilience. Throughout history, the monarchy had survived periods of uncertainty by adapting while preserving continuity. Many believed it was now attempting to do the same once again. The focus was shifting away from conflict and toward reassurance, away from division and toward stability. Yet that shift also highlighted another reality. The future of the institution would increasingly depend upon the generation preparing to inherit its responsibilities. That reality brought renewed attention to William and Catherine. Throughout the turmoil, their influence had continued growing, and many believed they would now shoulder even greater responsibilities in the years ahead. The expectations placed upon them were enormous. They were not only viewed as the future of the monarchy, but also as symbols of continuity during a period of significant change. Their ability to inspire confidence would play a crucial role in shaping how the next chapter unfolded. With greater prominence came greater responsibility, and the path before them appeared both promising and challenging. As all these developments converged, The crown found itself standing at the threshold of a new era. Familiar structures remained in place. Yet the balance within the institution appeared subtly different. New priorities were emerging. New expectations were taking shape. And while the future remained uncertain, the events of the past months had already left a lasting mark on the monarchy's story. The controversy may have begun as a private feud, but its consequences stretched far beyond the individuals involved. They reached into questions of leadership, trust, legacy, and the future direction of the royal family itself. Because in the world of royalty, power is rarely lost in a single moment. It slips away one decision, one conflict, and one leaked secret at a time. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.